Look at my male Dovii. Beautiful colors in him. Had him since he was about a 1 inch fish. He was in this 75-gallon tank with a bunch of other small fish at the time that I had eventually transferred over to a 55-gallon. And then as those fish grew, I got rid of most of those fish. And he was the only one that I kept. I had another Dovii in here with him originally when I had multiple fish in this tank. And I came downstairs one morning, he just was dead. He was the most dominant fish in the tank at the time. He wasn't the biggest, but he was the most dominant. And I came downstairs one morning to feed the tank, and he was belly up. I don't know what happened. That's just one of those mysterious aquarium deaths that I can't explain. But here's my 8-inch male Dovii that I'm looking to get a 180 for. I know people say a 180 isn't big enough for a Dovii, but guess what? It's going to work for me for a little while, at least until I move and get a 210, 270 to house them in probably permanently. Probably going to get a 270 when I move and purchase a home. But I was kind of trying to wait on getting a bigger tank because I didn't want to have to break it down when I buy my house. Been here at this house for a little over 3 years now, and breaking down aquariums isn't fun, especially when I'm the only man in the house. I got a wife and 4 daughters, and moving aquariums and living room sets and dining room sets and all of that ain't fun by yourself and just you and your wife. And so I was kind of like trying to hold off on getting that 180 until I move, but I think I'm going to go ahead and bite the bullet and do it. Get the 180 for him because he's been housed in this 75 for almost 3 years. I've been here been in this house a little over 3 years, and he's been in this tank for close to 3. And I raised him from a 1-inch fish, 2-inch fish, I think he was. So I broke down I had a 55 with a 8-inch Midas, beautiful Midas, nuchal hump, huge, healthy fish, beautiful fish. Broke the 55 down, sold my Midas, and sold the tank to a family member. And my boy John came to pick the tank up, and he set it up at his house, and he got some fish in there now. So it was good that that tank could go to somebody else that's, I can help out in the hobby. So, I had that tank a long time as well. Probably had that tank over 15 years, but I was just ready to move on from it, and just down to the 1 tank now with the 1 fish. I don't really count the pleco. But, he's a beautiful Dovii. I actually see that rip in his tail fin. is from the Midas when they were all in this 75 gallon together when they were about 3-4 inch fish. The Midas had dominated the tank, and at the time, and ripped his tail, and he was only about a 3 or 4 inch fish at the time. But you can see that kind of like stayed with him. But as he's growing now, it looked like it's starting to want to grow back even better than what it initially did. And I guess the bigger he gets and his tail fill out, it'll look, that rip will look smaller and smaller. So I kind of nicknamed him Rip because of that rip in his fin. Look at him. Look at the blue in his face, in his fins. I think it's feeding time. I'm just getting in from work. Normally I do feed when I get in. I just went back to work yesterday after almost 2 months of being out for a disc in my back. I got 2 discs in my back, bulging, and a pinched nerve, sciatica. So I've been out for 2 months, just went back yesterday. It's a beautiful fish. Going to do a water change probably tomorrow. I just did one last Friday. Tomorrow's Thursday, so I'll do another 20% order change. And I was talking to a new guy at work. Went back to work yesterday. There's some new people there now. And he was talking about fish today. And he was talking about getting into the hobby. And he had fish in the past. He said he didn't know. When he got into it years ago when he was a kid, he had a 20-gallon tank and he put like 6 or 7 different cichlids in it. And he couldn't understand why they were all fighting and killing each other. He didn't know any better. So I think we all probably had some of that as a learning curve when we first got into this hobby. Because I did the same thing. I've been around tanks and fish since I was about 5 years old, probably 4 or 5 maybe. And when I started getting into having my own tanks, I initially started out with a 20-gallon with an Oscar, and didn't know anything about dechlorification of the water, didn't know anything about having to keep up water changes, didn't know anything about having a fish that was too big to go into a 20-gallon tank. And what I learned is that people are in business to make money. So if they see you coming in the store and you're willing to buy something you say you want, they're going to sell it to you. And I believe in educating people, and not just having them buy something that's going to die. So once I learned, I began to educate other people on what I learned. And I was explaining to some people, actually earlier today, just before I got home, I stopped at a place and ran into another guy that was wanting to put a Maniguensi, a Jaguar cichlid, in a tank with a Oscar he just got in a 75. And what do you think a Jag and an Oscar going to do in a 75-gallon together? Eventually that Jag is going to kill that Oscar. So I just dropped some knowledge on him, and now he wants to put a Jack Dempsey in the tank with that Oscar, which will get along probably a lot better than a Jag will. A Jag probably eventually kill that Oscar. and especially in a 75, a small tank like that. So, but I passed on some knowledge today, and I actually learned some knowledge today. So, as much as you learn in this hobby, pass it on, because the more people we get in the hobby, the more availability we'll have to certain fish. Um, I'm going to set up a 180, put my Dovii in, and I'm probably going to be looking into some geophagus and stuff like that to put in the 75. So keep on keeping on.